The massive space station floated above Veral Prime like a silver crown. Inside its main chamber, representatives from 12 different alien species gathered for their monthly council meeting. The room was huge, with seats arranged in a circle. Each seat was designed for a different type of alien body. Some sat on chairs, some floated in special tanks, and others stood on platforms. The meeting was almost over. Most of the aliens looked bored. They had discussed trade agreements and mining rights for 3 hours. Everyone wanted to leave and return to their ships. Then the doors opened with a loud hiss. An alien walked in that made everyone stop and stare. He was tall and thin, with gray skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. His species was called the Virani. They were merchants and traders who rarely came to council meetings. They preferred to stay neutral in all political matters. "I am Ambassador Krelthos," the Virani said in a clear voice. "I request an emergency session. It concerns the new species that has applied for council membership." A large reptilian alien named Thax laughed. His scales were dark green and covered in scars from old battles. He was from the Krovar Empire, a military power that controlled 15 star systems. "An emergency session for the humans," Thax said with a snort. "Those weak little mammals from Earth? What could possibly be urgent about them?" In the observer's gallery above the main chamber, Captain Day sat quietly. He wore a simple blue uniform with the Earth symbol on his shoulder. His face showed no emotion as he watched the aliens below. Next to him, Lieutenant Hana studied a data pad. She was reading through humanity's application documents for the 100th time. "We should have expected this," Hana whispered to Day. "They see us as primitive." "Let them think what they want," Day replied softly. "Words don't hurt us." Down in the chamber, Krelthos continued speaking. "I have spent 2 years studying the humans. My ships have traded with them. I have read their history files. I have watched their entertainment and studied their wars. I must warn this council with all seriousness. Do not anger these humans. Do not push them. Do not make them your enemy." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then another alien started laughing. Soon half the council was laughing. They thought it was a joke. Lady Vess stood up from her seat. She was from the Archon Imperium, the oldest and most powerful empire in the galaxy. Her species looked almost human, but with silver skin and 3 eyes. She was known for being diplomatic and smart. "Ambassador Krelthos," Lady Vess said with a small smile, "we appreciate your concern. However, we have reviewed the human application ourselves. They have no unified world government. Their technology is at least 500 years behind ours. Their ships are slow and small. They have no natural weapons or armor. What exactly should we fear from them?" Krelthos looked around the chamber. He could see that no one believed him. Their faces showed amusement or disinterest. Some aliens had already started talking among themselves, ignoring him completely. "You ask what you should fear?" Krelthos said quietly. "Let me tell you what I learned. The humans come from a death world. Their planet has predators, diseases, natural disasters, and extreme weather. Most species would have died there. But humans survived. They became the dominant species by being persistent and clever." Thax waved his clawed hand dismissively. "Many species come from dangerous worlds." "That means nothing." "It means everything," Krelthos insisted. "Humans fought each other for thousands of years. They had hundreds of wars. They created weapons that could destroy their entire planet. They nearly killed themselves several times. But they always survived. They always adapted. They learned from every mistake. An insect-like alien clicked its mandibles. If they fought each other so much, they must be divided and weak. They will never unite against us." Krelthos shook his head slowly. "That is your fatal mistake. Yes, humans fight among themselves, but when faced with an outside threat, they become one. Their history shows this pattern again and again. They may argue about everything, but when someone threatens them all, they stand together." Lady Vess looked up at the observer's gallery where Dai and Hana sat. She studied them for a moment. They looked so ordinary, so harmless. She turned back to Krelthos. "Your warning is noted in the official record," Lady Vess said. "However, the council has already made its decision. The humans will be granted provisional membership. They will have restricted trade rights. They may not own ships larger than frigate class. They will pay triple tariffs on all goods. They are forbidden from settling in prime resource sectors. These restrictions will remain until they prove themselves worthy of full membership." "How long will that take?" Krelthos asked. "Usually about 50 years, Lady Vess replied. "Sometimes longer." Thax laughed again. If they behave themselves and follow our rules, maybe we will let them have real membership eventually. But they need to learn their place first. They need to understand that we are the powers here, not them. Krelthos looked directly at Thex. You are making a terrible mistake. You are treating them like children or slaves. Humans do not respond well to such treatment. Then they will learn discipline, Thex growled. The Krovar Empire knows how to teach lessons to primitive species. Krelthos realized he was wasting his time. These aliens were too proud and too confident. They had been the dominant powers for so long that they could not imagine being challenged. They looked at humanity's small ships and peaceful requests and saw only weakness. I have delivered my warning, Krelthos said. What happens next is your responsibility, not mine. He turned and walked out of the chamber. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Then the aliens began talking again, making jokes about the nervous merchant who was afraid of harmless humans. Up in the gallery, Day stood slowly. Come on, Hana, we have our answer. They barely listened to us, Hana said with frustration. They treated us like we were nothing. I know, Day replied. His voice was calm, but his eyes were cold. Let's return to the ship. We need to report back to Earth. As they walked through the corridors of the space station, Hana asked, What do you think will happen now? Day was quiet for a moment. I think the Varani ambassador was right to warn them. I think he saw something in us that the others missed. But they won't listen until it's too late. Will there be war? Hana asked quietly. I hope not, Day said. But humans have a saying. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Something tells me we should start preparing. Behind them in the council chamber, the aliens continued their meeting. They had already forgotten about the warning. They had already dismissed the humans as unimportant. They would remember this day later. But by then it would be too late to change what was coming. 3 months had passed since humanity received provisional council membership. Captain Day had sent dozens of requests to the council. He asked for fair trade agreements. He requested permission to expand human colonies. He tried to negotiate lower tariffs. Every single request was denied or simply ignored. The restrictions were becoming unbearable. Human ships had to wait days at checkpoints while alien ships passed through immediately. Human traders paid 3 times more than everyone else for the same goods. Human settlements were pushed to the worst planets, far from trade routes and resources. But the humans endured. They followed the rules. They stayed patient. They believed that eventually the council would treat them fairly. Then everything changed. The trade station called Helios Gate orbited a neutron star at the edge of civilized space. It was a busy place where ships from many species stopped to refuel and trade. Commander Yun had docked his ship, the New Dawn, there 2 hours ago. His cargo hold was full of medical supplies desperately needed at a human colony. A plague had broken out there and hundreds of people were dying. Yun was a civilian captain, not military. He was a short man with kind eyes and gray hair. His sister Mi worked as his co-pilot. They had been running supplies between human colonies for 5 years. We should be cleared for departure soon, Mi said as she checked the station's schedule. Another hour at most. Then 6 Krovar soldiers entered their ship without permission. Their leader was a massive alien with dark green scales and cruel yellow eyes. He carried a weapon that looked like a mix between a rifle and a blade. This ship is being searched, the Krovar announced. Stand aside. We already cleared customs, Yun protested. All our cargo was inspected and approved. I don't care about your papers, the Krovar said. We have reports of smuggling. We will search everything. Yun knew this was a lie. There were no reports. This was harassment, plain and simple. But he also knew that arguing with armed Krovar was dangerous. He stepped back and let them search. The Krovar went through everything. They tore open supply boxes. They broke sealed containers. They destroyed weeks of careful organization. Finally, their leader stopped in front of the medical supplies. These drugs are restricted, he declared. No, they're not, Mi said firmly. Those are basic antibiotics and vaccines. They're not on any restricted list. They are now, the Krovar said with a nasty smile. I'm confiscating this cargo. You can't do that. Yun shouted. People are dying. They need this medicine. Should have thought about that before smuggling, the Krovar replied. We're not smugglers. Yun stepped forward angrily. This is theft. I'll report this to the council. The Krovar leader moved faster than seemed possible for something so large. His clawed hand grabbed Yun by the throat and lifted him off the ground. You'll report nothing, human. Mi screamed and ran toward her brother. Another Crovar hit her with the butt of his weapon. She fell to the floor, blood running from her head. Mi, Yoon choked out, struggling in the Crovar's grip. What happened next was captured on the ship's security cameras. The footage would later be seen by millions of humans across dozens of worlds. It would change everything. The Crovar beat Yoon until he stopped moving. Then they dragged him and 4 other crew members to the airlock. Mi regained consciousness just in time to see her brother's face through the airlock window. He was barely alive, his face covered in blood. "Please," she begged. "Please don't." The Crovar leader pressed the button. The airlock opened to space. 5 human bodies were blown out into the vacuum. They died within seconds. Mi's scream echoed through the empty ship. The security footage reached Earth within 6 hours. It spread through human networks like fire. People watched in horror as Yoon and his crew were murdered. They watched Mi's desperate pleas. They watched the Crovar laugh as they left the ship with the stolen medical supplies. For the first time in decades, every human government spoke with one voice. The fragmented nations of Earth, the independent colonies, the corporate settlements, they all agreed. This could not stand. Ambassador Hay was a dignified woman in her 50s. She had spent her entire career working for peace and cooperation. She believed in diplomacy. She believed in the council system. But as she watched the footage for the 10th time, tears running down her face, she felt something break inside her. She went to the council station immediately. She demanded an emergency meeting. She was told to wait. She waited for 6 hours in a small room with no windows. Finally, a junior clerk, some species she didn't even recognize, came to see her. "The council has reviewed your complaint," the clerk said in a bored voice. "The matter will be investigated in due time." "In due time?" His voice shook with rage. 5 humans were murdered. "We have video evidence." "This requires immediate action." "The Crovar have filed a counter-complaint," the clerk replied. "They claim the humans were smuggling and resisted arrest. Both sides will be heard eventually." "Eventually? When?" "These things take time. Perhaps a few years." He stared at the clerk. "Years?" "Yes, the council has many important matters to address. This is unfortunate, but it's just one incident. Not really a priority." He left the station without another word. She had her answer. The council didn't care. To them, human lives meant nothing. Deep beneath the city of Seoul on Earth, in a military complex that officially didn't exist, Admiral Tae received Hay's report. He was an old man, a veteran of Earth's last major conflict 30 years ago. He had hoped to retire without seeing another war. He had spent decades building Earth's defense systems, praying they would never be needed. Now they were needed. Tae called a meeting with the military leaders of every human nation and colony. They gathered in the secure room, faces appearing on screens from across human space. Chinese generals, American admirals, European commanders, African strategists, Asian tacticians, colony militia leaders. All of them had seen the footage. All of them were furious. "They killed our people," Tae said quietly. "They stole medicine meant for dying colonists. They laughed about it, and the council does nothing." "What are you proposing?" asked a general from the Mars colonies. "We have a protocol," Tae replied. "We created it years ago, hoping we'd never use it. We called it Protocol Fenrir. It's named after the wolf from old Earth myths, the one that was bound by chains until the end of the world, when it would break free and bring destruction." "You're talking about war," someone said. "I'm talking about showing them that we are not victims," Tae corrected. "I'm talking about teaching them that human life has value. I'm talking about making them respect us." The vote was unanimous. Captain Day received his orders on the Indomitable Spirit, humanity's largest warship. It was small by council standards, only 400 meters long, but it was fast and it carried weapons the council had never seen. Day read the orders twice. His hands were steady, but his heart was heavy. He had hoped for peace. He had tried everything to avoid this moment. But the time for hoping was over. "Rin," he called to his tactical officer. "Wake the crew. Tell them to prepare for combat operations. Set a course for the Crovar home system." "Sir?" Rin looked shocked. "That's an act of war." "Yes," Day agreed, "it is. But they started it when they spaced our people and laughed. Now we're going to finish it." The Crovar home system was beautiful. 3 planets orbited a yellow sun. The second planet, Krovax, was their homeworld. It had blue oceans and green continents. Cities covered the surface, connected by gleaming transport tubes. Orbital stations floated above like jewels. Everything spoke of wealth, power, and centuries of peace. The Krovar had not fought a real war in 300 years. Their military existed mostly for show and for bullying smaller species. Their mighty dreadnoughts were impressive to look at, but rarely used for actual combat. Each dreadnought was 3 kilometers long, covered in weapons and armor. They could destroy entire fleets with their main cannons, or so the Krovar believed. 50 Krovar warships patrolled the home system at all times. When sensors detected the human ships entering from FTL, the Krovar response was immediate. 50 ships moved to intercept. It would be easy, they thought. A quick demonstration of power to teach these humans proper respect. On the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, Captain Day watched the enemy fleet approach on his displays. 12 human ships hung in space near the edge of the system. They were tiny compared to the Krovar vessels. The smallest Krovar ship was bigger than the largest human one. "They're hailing us," Lieutenant Hanna reported. "Audio only. Put it through," Day ordered. A deep, growling voice filled the bridge. "Human vessels, you have entered Krovar space without permission. This is an act of war. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Day picked up the communications device slowly. When he spoke, his voice was calm and cold. "This is Captain Day of the Earthship Indomitable Spirit. We are here for Commander Yun and his crew. Return their bodies to us. Return the medical supplies you stole. Punish those responsible for their murder. Do this within 24 hours, and we will leave peacefully." There was a long silence. Then the Krovar voice came back, but now it was laughing. "You dare make demands? You come here with your tiny ships and threaten us? This is amusing. We will destroy your ships now. Consider it payment for your insult." The communication cut off. The Krovar fleet accelerated toward the human ships, weapons charging. Day looked at his tactical officer. "Kai, how long until they're in range?" 5 minutes at current speed," Kai replied. He was a young man, barely 25, but his eyes were focused and calm. "They're not bothering with formation. They think this will be easy." "Good," Day said. "Rin, are all ships ready?" "Yes, sir," Rin confirmed. "All captains report ready for scatter pattern Delta." "Then let's show them what humans learned from 10,000 years of killing each other," Day said quietly. "Execute." The 12 human ships suddenly broke formation. Each one released thousands of small objects from cargo bays. The Krovar sensors picked them up but classified them as debris. Maybe emergency evacuation pods or jettisoned cargo. Nothing to worry about, they were very wrong. Each small object was a kinetic missile. No engines, no guidance systems, just dense metal shaped into pointed projectiles. But they were moving at 30% of light speed. At those velocities, even a small piece of metal became a devastating weapon. The mathematics were simple. Kinetic energy equals half the mass times velocity squared. A 1 kilogram object moving at 90,000 kilometers per second carried more destructive force than a large nuclear bomb. The human ships had released 12,000 such projectiles. The Krovar fleet flew straight into the cloud of metal. The first dreadnought never knew what hit it. 73 projectiles struck it within 2 seconds. Each one punched through armor like it was paper. The impacts released so much heat that sections of the ship simply vaporized. Secondary explosions tore through the hull. The ship broke apart, its reactor going critical and adding its own explosion to the destruction. The other Krovar ships tried to turn, tried to scatter, tried to raise additional shields. But they were massive ships designed for slow, powerful combat. They couldn't maneuver quickly enough. The kinetic missiles were already among them. One ship after another died. The projectiles were too small and too fast for point defense systems to track. Some ships managed to destroy a few missiles, but hundreds more got through. Armor meant nothing. Shields meant nothing. The laws of physics were absolute and uncaring. In 17 minutes, 43 Krovar warships were destroyed. The remaining 7 managed to retreat, their hulls scarred with impact craters, systems failing, crews in shock. The human ships had not fired a single energy weapon. They had not even moved from their positions. They had simply released their payload and let physics do the rest. On the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, there was no celebration. Day and his crew watched the destruction with grim faces. They had just killed thousands of beings. There was no joy in that, only necessity. "Broadcast on all frequencies," Day ordered. "All channels, including civilian." Hanna activated the communications array. Day's face appeared on every screen in the Krovar system. Millions of Krovar civilians saw him. The council station picked up the broadcast. Ships across nearby systems detected it. This was a warning, Day said. His voice carried no anger, no triumph, only cold certainty. You killed our people. You stole medicine from our dying colonists. You laughed about it. The council did nothing. So we came here to show you that human lives have value, that we will not be bullied, that we will not be victims. He paused, letting his words sink in. You have 24 hours to meet our demands. Return the bodies of Commander Yun and his crew. Return the medical supplies. Surrender those responsible for their deaths. If you do this, we will leave. If you do not, we will return. And next time we will not stop with your fleet. We will make you understand permanently that humanity is not prey. The broadcast ended. The human ships remained in position, waiting. On the council station, alarms screamed. Lights flashed red. Representatives ran through corridors in panic. Lady Vess stood in the main chamber, staring at tactical displays that showed the destruction of most of the Krovar home fleet. It was impossible. It shouldn't have been possible. How? She whispered. How did they do this? Thex, the Krovar representative, was screaming into a communications device. Send everything. Every ship. I want those humans destroyed. I want their worlds burned. An advisor ran up to Lady Vess. Ma'am, we're detecting military mobilizations across council space. The Archon fleet is being recalled. The Varani are closing their borders. The minor species are evacuating their embassies. They think this is the start of a war, Lady Vess said. Isn't it? The advisor asked. Lady Vess thought about Ambassador Krelthos and his warning 3 months ago. She had dismissed him. They had all dismissed him. The humans seemed so weak, so harmless, so primitive. Now 50 Krovar warships were debris, and the humans were sitting calmly in the Krovar home system, waiting for a response. Get me every file we have on human history, Lady Vess ordered. I want to know everything about their wars, their weapons, their tactics. I want to understand what we're facing. Is it too late? The advisor asked quietly. Lady Vess looked at the tactical display again. At the 12 small human ships that had destroyed a fleet 50 times their size, at the cold certainty in Captain Day's eyes during his broadcast. I don't know, she admitted, but I'm starting to understand why the Varani warned us. These humans didn't come to space looking for a fight, but they know how to fight better than any species we've ever encountered. They've spent their entire history perfecting it. Thex was still shouting orders, demanding revenge, calling for total war. Lady Vess made a decision. She walked over to Thex and grabbed his arm. Stop. What? Thex spun to face her. Those mammals destroyed our fleet. We must respond with overwhelming force. If we do that, we'll all die, Lady Vess said quietly. Don't you see? They used the simplest weapons imaginable. Metal, velocity, physics. They didn't need fancy energy weapons or special technology. They just needed to understand math and have no fear of using it. What else do they have that we don't know about? Thex pulled his arm away. I will not show weakness to humans. It's not weakness, Lady Vess said. It's wisdom. The Varani tried to tell us. We didn't listen. Now we pay the price for our arrogance. The council held an emergency meeting within hours. Every representative was there, including ones who usually sent junior staff. The chamber was full of angry voices and frightened faces. Some wanted war. Others wanted peace. All of them wanted answers. Thex stood in the center of the chamber, his scales darker than usual with rage. The humans have committed an act of war. They destroyed 50 of our ships. This cannot stand. I demand that the council authorize a combined fleet to attack Earth immediately. Several representatives shouted their agreement. The Krovar were powerful. An attack on them was an attack on the council's authority. Lady Vess raised her hand for silence. Before we make any decisions, we should understand what happened. How did 12 small ships destroy 50 of our most powerful vessels? They used cowardly weapons. Thex snarled. Primitive kinetic missiles. They have no honor. Honor doesn't matter when you're dead, Ambassador Krelthos said from his seat. He had been silent until now, but his voice cut through the argument. I warned you. 3 months ago, I stood here and warned you. You laughed at me. You could not have known this would happen, Lady Vess said. I knew enough, Krelthos replied. I studied human military history. Every war they fought, every battle, every conflict. They are innovators. They adapt. They take simple things and make them deadly. Kinetic weapons are obvious once you think about it. But we never thought about it because we've had energy weapons for so long. Humans thought about it because they had to. A representative from the Trell Collective spoke up. Even so, they only have a few dozen ships. We have thousands. Surely a combined fleet can defeat them easily. Can we? Krelthos asked. What other weapons do they have that we don't know about? What other tactics? What other innovations born from their thousands of years of warfare? The chamber fell silent. No one had an answer. Thex broke the silence with a roar. It doesn't matter. I have already called for a fleet. 300 ships from 4 empires. We will crush them. You what? Lady Vess stood up quickly. You had no authority to do that without council approval. The Krovar Empire doesn't need permission to defend itself. Thex shot back. The fleet is already gathering. In 3 days we attack Earth. We will show these humans what real power looks like. On Earth, in the Deep Command Center, Admiral Tay watched the intelligence reports come in. The Council was assembling a massive fleet. 300 warships. More firepower than had been gathered in 50 years. They're serious this time, said General Kim from the Lunar Defense Base. His face appeared on one of the many screens around the war room. Good, Tay replied. If they're coming with everything, we can end this in one battle. Are we ready? Asked Commander Park, head of the Mars military. Tay looked around the room at all the screens showing military leaders from across human space.
We've been preparing for this scenario for decades.
Every colony has defense platforms. Every civilian ship has been converted or armed. Every human in space knows their role. Yes, we're ready. What are the projected casualties? Someone asked quietly. Tay's face was grim. High. Even with everything we've prepared, we'll lose thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. They outnumber us badly. But we'll win? General Kim pressed. We'll survive, Tay corrected. For humans, that's the same thing. 3 days later, the Council fleet arrived at Earth's orbit. 300 warships dropped out of FTL in a massive formation. They expected to see a few dozen human ships, panicked defenses, desperate calls for mercy. Instead, they found a fortress. Earth was surrounded by thousands of small defense platforms. Human ships, more than anyone knew existed, hung in precise formations. The moon bristled with railguns. Mars and its colonies were ready. The asteroid belt had been turned into a defensive line. On the flagship of the Council fleet, Admiral Vox stared at his displays in confusion. He was a Trell, a species known for military strategy. He had planned this attack carefully, but this was not what he expected. Where did they get all these ships? He asked his second-in-command. Unknown, sir. Our intelligence said they only had 40 combat vessels. They have hundreds, Vox said. And those platforms, what are those? Unknown weapons, sir. The readings are strange. Vox opened a communication channel to Earth. Human forces, this is Admiral Vox of the Council fleet. You are surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender now and your planet will be spared. The reply came from Admiral Tay himself. His face appeared on every screen in the Council fleet. He looked old and tired, but his eyes were sharp. This is Admiral Tay of Earth Defense. You have made 3 mistakes. First, you assumed we were unprepared. Second, you assumed we were divided. Third, you assumed we would surrender. All 3 assumptions are wrong. Turn back now while you still can. You cannot win this battle, Vox replied. We have 300 warships. And we have 10,000 years of experience in war, Tay said. Every human up here has studied military history since childhood. Every captain knows 100 different battles. Every tactical officer has trained for this. We are not stronger than you. We are not more advanced than you. But we are better at fighting than anyone else in the galaxy. Because that's what we've always done. We fight, we survive. We win. The communication ended. Vox hesitated. Something about the old human's certainty made him uneasy. But orders were orders. All ships advance, he commanded. Destroy all military targets. The Council fleet moved forward. They opened fire with energy weapons, their beams bright across the darkness of space. Then Earth struck back. The defense platforms weren't using energy weapons. They were railguns, magnetically accelerating projectiles to incredible speeds. Thousands of rounds filled space. The Council ship's shields could stop energy weapons easily, but solid matter moving at extreme velocity? That was different. Human ships danced between the larger Council vessels. They were smaller and faster. They used tactics the Council had never seen. One human corvette, commanded by Lieutenant Sol, led her squadron straight at a dreadnought. The Council ship's weapons tracked them but couldn't get a lock. The human ships were too fast, too erratic. Sol's ship flew under the dreadnought's belly and released its payload. Magnetic mines attached to the hull. 10 seconds later, they exploded, tearing through the ship's weaker underside. The dreadnought began to list, systems failing. On Mars, Dr. Wu activated his experiment. For years, he had been researching gravity manipulation for peaceful purposes, for better mining and construction. Now he used it for war. A massive gravity well appeared in space, invisible but devastating. 20 council ships found themselves caught in crushing gravitational forces. Their hulls buckled. Their systems shut down. They were trapped, helpless. Near Earth's moon, young pilot Na flew her small fighter through impossible maneuvers. Her neural interface connected her directly to her ship's systems. She could react faster than any alien pilot. She dodged, weaved, and struck like a snake. 6 enemy fighters pursued her. She led them through a debris field, knowing every rock's position from memory. The enemy pilots weren't as precise. 4 of them crashed. The other 2 she destroyed with perfectly aimed missiles. The battle raged for 8 hours. The Council fleet had more ships and more firepower. But human tactics were superior. Every human ship worked together perfectly. They communicated instantly. They adapted to every situation. They used the environment, used physics, used every advantage they could find. Finally, Admiral Vox called for retreat. His fleet had lost nearly 200 ships. The humans had lost thousands of fighters and dozens of larger vessels, but their main defense still held. Earth was still intact. As the Council fleet limped away, Vox understood something important. The humans hadn't used their full strength. They had been defending, holding back. If they had chosen to pursue, to press their advantage, they could have destroyed his entire fleet. They let him leave. They made their point without needless killing. Back at the Council station, Lady Vess received the reports with a heavy heart. The defeat was total and humiliating. Worse, every species in the galaxy now knew that the Council could be beaten. Ambassador Hay requested an audience. This time she was not made to wait. She was brought directly to the main chamber. Hay stood before the Council, her uniform clean, her posture straight. Behind her calm exterior was a woman who had just watched her people fight for their lives. "You asked us what we are," Hay said quietly. "Now you know, we are the descendants of a species that survived everything. Ice ages, plagues, predators, asteroid impacts. We fought each other for 10,000 years and almost destroyed ourselves. But we didn't, we learned. We adapted, we survived. That is what we are, survivors, and we are very, very good at it." The Council chamber was silent after Hay finished speaking. Every representative sat still, processing what she had said. Processing what had happened. 2 battles. 2 devastating defeats. The military power of the Council, proven weak against a species they had thought primitive. Lady Vess stood slowly. She was the senior member now. The others looked to her for leadership. She took a deep breath and made a choice that would change the galaxy. "Ambassador Hay," Lady Vess said formally, "the Council recognizes that we made errors in judgment. We treated your species unfairly. We dismissed your concerns. We ignored your warnings. These mistakes led to unnecessary conflict and death on both sides." "Yes, they did," Hay replied. Her voice was steady, but her eyes held pain. She had watched humans die. She had seen the destruction. She took no pleasure in being right. "We wish to end this conflict," Lady Vess continued. "We propose a ceasefire and peace negotiations. Ambassador Krelthos of the Varani has agreed to serve as mediator." The Varani merchant stepped forward. He looked at Hay with respect. "I warned them." They did not listen. But perhaps they will listen now. Will humanity agree to negotiations? Hay looked at him for a long moment. "What are the terms?" "That is what we must discuss," Krelthos replied. "But I suggest we begin with what humanity originally asked for. Fair treatment, equal rights, respect." Thex stood up angrily from his seat. "This is surrender. We cannot give them everything they want. They attacked us." "You murdered our people first," Hay said coldly. "You stole medicine from dying colonists. You laughed about it. Everything that followed came from that choice. The investigation into that incident will be reopened," Lady Vess said quickly. "Those responsible will face justice." "Not good enough," Hay replied. "We want full Council membership, equal trade rights, equal tariffs, the right to settle where we choose, the right to defend ourselves without restriction, and we want reparations for the families of those killed." Several representatives started shouting at once. It was too much. They couldn't give humans everything. Ambassador Krelthos raised his hands for silence. Let me ask you all a question. What choice do you have? The humans have proven they can defend themselves. They have proven they can hurt you badly. You can continue fighting and lose more ships, more lives. Or you can make peace and treat them as equals. Which serves your people better? The chamber fell quiet again. Everyone knew he was right. There is another factor to consider, Krelthos added. Other species are watching. The smaller species, the ones you have treated as lesser members. They see that the council can be challenged. They see that humanity fought for respect and won. If you do not make fair peace with humans, others will follow their example. The council will fall apart. That argument worked. The representatives began talking among themselves. Slowly a consensus formed. The alternative to peace was chaos. The negotiations took 3 weeks. They were difficult and tense, but Ambassador Krelthos kept both sides talking. Gradually, terms were agreed upon. Humanity would receive full council membership with all rights and privileges. All discriminatory tariffs and restrictions would be removed. The Krovar Empire would pay reparations to the families of those killed and return all stolen property. The soldiers responsible for spacing Commander Yun and his crew would stand trial. In return, humanity agreed to share some of their defensive technology and tactical knowledge with the Council. Not weapons, but concepts. Ways of thinking about combat that the other species had never considered. The treaty was signed on the Council station. Ambassador Hay signed for humanity. Lady Vess signed for the Council. 12 other representatives added their marks. When it was done, Hay allowed herself to feel relief for the first time in months. The war was over. Humans could finally live in peace among the stars. But the galaxy had changed in ways no one fully understood yet. 6 months after the treaty, Captain Day, now Commodore Day, commanded the first joint patrol between human and Varani ships. His vessel, still the Indomitable Spirit, flew alongside 3 Varani merchant cruisers through a contested region of space where pirates operated. On his bridge, Lieutenant Rin worked at her station. Next to her, a Varani navigator named Telk studied human tactical displays with fascination. "Your weapons are so simple," Telk said, "but so effective. We always made things complicated. More power, more range, more features. You just made things that worked." "Humans have a saying," Rin replied. "Keep it simple. Complex things break. Simple things keep working." "I am learning many human sayings," Telk said with what might have been a smile. His species' expressions were hard to read. "My favorite is hope for the best, prepare for the worst, very practical." Day listened to them talk and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real hope. The species were learning from each other. Building trust. Maybe this peace would last. On Earth, Admiral Tay stood at a memorial wall. It was a new monument, built to honor those who died in the conflicts. Thousands of names were carved into black stone. He found Commander Yun's name. Next to it was Mi's name and the names of the other crew who had been spaced. Tay placed his hand on the wall. He had retired after the treaty was signed. His duty was done. But he came here every week to remember the cost of peace. "They didn't die for nothing," a voice said behind him. Tay turned to see Commander Yun's sister, Mi. She had survived, but her injuries left her unable to return to space. She worked now at the memorial, helping families find their loved ones' names. "No," Tay agreed. "They didn't. Because of them, humanity has a place in the galaxy. A real place, as equals. Do you think it will last?" Mi asked. "The peace?" Tay thought about it. "I think we proved something important. We proved that humans will not accept being treated as lesser. We proved we can defend ourselves. Those lessons won't be forgotten quickly. Will there be conflicts in the future? Probably. But I don't think anyone will make the mistake of thinking we're easy targets again." Mi nodded. She looked at her brother's name on the wall. He would have wanted peace. He was always saying we should work together, all species. He believed in that. "Then we honor him by making it work," Tay said. Across the galaxy, things were changing. The smaller species in the Council started demanding better treatment. They used humanity's example. They said if humans could fight for equality, so could they. The Council had to adapt. New rules were written. Old prejudices were questioned. It was slow and difficult, but change was happening. In a small apartment on Mars, Pilot Na watched a news broadcast with her family. She had been awarded medals for her actions in the battle. Her younger brother Ben looked at them with wide eyes. Were you scared? Ben asked. When you were fighting? I thought about it honestly. Yes, I was terrified. But I was also angry. And I knew if I didn't fight, if we all didn't fight, things would never get better. Did we win? Ben asked. It was the same question he had asked right after the battle. Na smiled, remembering her answer then. But now, 6 months later, with peace holding and humans walking freely among the stars, she had a different answer. Yes, she said. We won, not because we destroyed their ships. We won because now they respect us. Now they treat us fairly. Now we can build something better together. Will you go back to space? Ben asked. Yes, Na replied. But not to fight. To explore, to trade, to meet new species and learn from them. That's what we always wanted, right? To go to the stars and find our place there. On the council station, Lady Vess met privately with Ambassador Krelthos. They sat in a quiet room overlooking the stars. You were right, Lady Vess admitted. About the humans. About everything. I take no pleasure in it, Krelthos replied. Many died because of our arrogance. What do you think happens now? Lady Vess asked. I think humanity will surprise us, Krelthos said. They surprised us with their capacity for violence. Now I think they will surprise us with their capacity for cooperation and innovation. They are natural traders, natural diplomats, natural explorers. They were all those things even while they fought each other. Now that they're united and at peace, imagine what they might accomplish. You sound optimistic, Lady Vess observed. I am, Krelthos said. Humans have a saying, the night is darkest before the dawn. We went through darkness. But now perhaps we're seeing the dawn of something better, a galaxy where all species are truly equal, where strength is respected but so is peace. The humans taught us that lesson. Now we must live it. Ambassador Hay stood before the council one last time before returning to Earth. She had spent months on the station, working on implementation of the treaty. Now it was time to go home. Before I leave, she said to the assembled representatives, I want to say something. We did not want this conflict. We came to you in peace. We hoped for friendship. When that was denied, we fought. But fighting was never our goal. Our goal was respect. Our goal was equality. Our goal was to prove that every species, no matter how they look or where they come from, deserves to be treated with dignity. She paused, looking at each representative. We are not perfect. We have our own problems, our own conflicts, our own mistakes. But we learned something from thousands of years of war. We learned that cooperation is stronger than conquest. We learned that respect is earned, not given.